Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. In today's show, Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos defends his paper's decision to not back a 2024 candidate for president, claiming that presidential endorsements creates a perception of bias. Former President Barack Obama headlined a Monday stump speech in support of Kamala Harris in Philadelphia this time, spending most of his remarks criticizing former President Trump and at one point appearing to admonish men as a voting bloc who are more favorable to Donald Trump than Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer sat down to have a beer at a Kalamazoo bar. It was this past weekend on Saturday, and they were caught on a hot mic talking about how poorly the vice president is doing among young male voters. Also, according to polls, this one, the Harvard Kennedy School of Politics, over the course of just 4 years, male voters under 30 have shifted a net 14 points towards Republicans and will be casting their vote for Donald Trump this year. We take a look at why Kamala Harris has suddenly decided to go after males.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Kamala Harris realizes she has a problem with men. A number of recent polls is showing in real time young men particularly who are moving in masses to support Donald Trump, and the Harris campaign is in a panic. Let's start with the vice president being caught on a hot mic admitting that her campaign needs to work on appealing to male voters during a campaign stop over the weekend in Kalamazoo, where she sat down with Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer to have a beer. She seemed to have forgotten that they were surrounded by microphones and cameras, according to footage posted to social media. Let's listen in.
So a hot mic moment at a campaign stop in Michigan appears to have caught Vice President Harris admitting to Governor Gretchen Whitmer that her campaign has an issue that they're working on with male voters. Listen.
Yeah. Oh, we have microphones and I was listening to everything. I didn't realize that.
Okay, so you couldn't hear what she said exactly, but you could hear when she realized that there were microphones around. Now, some are speculating on whether or not this was just set up, that she really knew the mics were there. She's just trying to drawing attention as it was a stunt. And first off, let me say this too. I watched this video multiple times, and the two are at a bar, supposedly drinking beer. And if you watch the video, the vice president never really takes a drink. She pretends to drink from this beer mug, but doesn't really drink anything. You can see it. I mean, you can see she just touches her lips to the edge of the glass. This is just another example of how phony she is. She wants to appear to be just having a drink, having a beer at a bar, but yet she's not really drinking the beer. Now, on to what she said. Harris appears to be telling Governor Whitmer, we need to move ground among men. The Democrat nominee then looks up and she kind of points around and it's like, oh my, there are cameras around, there are microphones around. She said, oh, we have microphones in here listening to everything. I didn't realize that, and that part we could hear. Okay, so now you'll tell us, Harris says as she turns around while pointing around the room. Whitmer jokes, you'll bleep my F words. Harris says, laughing, we just told all the family's secrets. Shoot. Except she didn't say shoot. I can't say the word she said. Many on social media theorized that the hot mic moment was really just staged. that it was some kind of joke. I honestly, I don't know what she had to gain by it to admit that she has a problem with men. Even so, Harris's campaign does need to make up ground. I mean, they're behind, which is a good thing for Donald Trump. The vice president lags behind the former president significantly among young men, according to recent polls. We're going to get into some of those too. She knows she's in trouble, though. She knows that she's got to do something. So what does she do? She sends Barack Obama out among other surrogates. Obama headlined a speech in Philadelphia. This was in northern Philadelphia yesterday. At one point, appearing to admonish men who, as a voting bloc, as I said, are supporting Donald Trump. Barack Obama doesn't like it. He spoke along with a whole host of other speakers and performers, Bruce Springsteen, John Legend, the Democrat mayor of Philadelphia, Sherelle Parker, Senator Robert Casey. At one point, Obama said, "Do not dilly or dally, get out there and vote," encouraging people to not wait till the last minute, to go ahead and vote early because Pennsylvania, like most states, are in the middle of their early voting. Obama slammed Trump for what he called the Muslim ban and claims that the Republican denies that he had once referred to fallen American soldiers as losers and suckers, which we all know that's not true. But Obama keeps repeating it on the campaign trail. Obama then went after males and kind of suggested that if you think that Donald Trump is macho, then you're just stupid yourself. Saying that too many young men think that Trump's behavior is somehow a sign of strength. Obama saying there's nothing strong about Donald Trump.
And I've noticed this especially with some men who seem to think Trump's behavior is somehow a sign of strength. Sort of the macho, fake macho thing. And, I'm here to tell you that's not what real strength is. It never has been. Real strength's about working hard. Real strength's about taking responsibility. Real strength is about telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. Real strength is about being confident enough to treat everybody with dignity and respect. Real strength is about helping people who need it and standing up for those who can't always stand up for themselves.
He can get real angry on the campaign trail. Obama also made fun of President Trump, quote, hawking Trump Bibles, and claims that they're actually made in China. He says he wants you to follow the word of God, Donald Trump edition, and everybody kind of laughs. He said, "You're a tough guy on China except when you can make a few bucks," claiming that the Bibles are made in China. And he said that he said this is like a Saturday Night Live skit unfolding. As the crowd often jeered when Obama would name Trump, Obama repeatedly criticized the crowd for the response, telling the crowd not to boo, but to vote.
When he's not complaining, he's trying to sell you stuff. Trying to sell you gold sneakers. Trying to sell you a $100,000 watch. Says it's a Swiss watch. They can't find where in Switzerland it's actually made. But he wants to sell you a Trump Bible. Do not boo, vote. Remember that. I want everybody to understand, nobody can hear your boos, but they can hear your vote.
And that was sort of the gist of the speech. I don't think I have to tell you all the details. You can kind of fill in the blank. It's more of the same old thing. It's the same thing that we heard from Barack Obama last week. Some of the very same lines. Obama, again, joined by some of Harris's Hollywood type friends. John Legend. You know, Peg asked me the other day, John Legend's coming to Greenville. He's going to be at the Peace Center. Peg asked me if I was interested in going to see him. Now, you know, I kind of like John Legend. I like to see him when he's on The Voice. But I will not buy a ticket. I will not spend my money to go support someone like John Legend who is out trying to ruin our country. Legend claimed that, quote, freedom is at stake in this election. Well, you're right there. If your Kamala Harris wins, John Legend, there's going to be a lot of our freedoms. Our freedom of speech, number one. Our freedom to bear arms, number two. And the list goes on from there. Wow. A spokesman for Team Trump suggested at the rally that Democrats' decision to have Obama back on the campaign circuit is a sign of desperation in the Commonwealth. I would tend to agree with it. In a statement, they said Democrats' continued reliance on celebrities and Barack Obama, a president from over 10 years ago, to make the case for their party's presidential candidate is another indication that Kamala's pitch for another 4 years of unlimited illegal immigration, inflation, and wars abroad is falling flat with Pennsylvanians. I would tend to agree. Up next, we take a look at what the New York Post describes as a real problem for the Harris campaign among young men who appear to be voting this year for Donald Trump. That's up next. This year, I really thought I was going to have to boycott the holidays. I was going to lock myself away and not come out until 2025. But after finding PhD weight loss, you can bet I'll be at every holiday party I'm invited to. That's because PhD weight loss helped me take control with great confidence, support, and my new healthy body. The best part, PhD weight loss did it all without harmful drugs that keep you dependent on them to maintain your weight loss. It's a natural, medication-free approach to weight loss crafted to naturally diminish food-related thoughts, hunger, and cravings, making your weight loss journey more sustainable and enjoyable. Take it from me, I lost 33 pounds. The PhD weight loss program teaches you not just what to eat and when, but also how to think differently about food and finally let go of those cravings and get rid of the hunger naturally. Don't lock yourself away this holiday season. Call PhD Weight Loss today at 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. President Donald Trump spent 3 hours with Joe Rogan last Friday on his popular podcast. Why? You got to ask the question, why would he spend 3 hours of a very busy schedule in the final days of his presidential campaign? Disillusioned with tax and spend Democrats, young men are turning to make America great again in 2024. That's why. Over the course of just 4 years, male voters under the age of 30 have shifted a net of 14 points towards Republicans, according to polling by the Harvard Kennedy School of Politics. Citing inflation, immigration, the withering of the American dream as they have been taught it, the left's war on toxic masculinity, and the former president's ability to bro out with their favorite podcasters, young men told the New York Post what made them ready to get behind Trump this November. Alex Bruesewitz, he's 27 years old, a campaign advisor for Trump, told the New York Post, as far as young males are concerned, I feel like the Democrats have no message for them. The Democrats have totally ignored that base. I think they lack testosterone in the Kamala headquarters campaign team. And this is sort of the theme that we're hearing from young men all around the country. The Trump's campaign strategy is very clear. They're going to go where these young men are. And that's some of what they're calling the bro podcast circuit. Speaking to Joe Rogan, for example, Logan Paul, campaigning on issues important to young men like immigration and strengthening the economy, is paying off for Donald Trump. Kamala Harris is finally realizing it, that rather than making fun of and deriding these young men, you got to talk to them. You got to find out what's important to them. She has no clue because she doesn't care. Yet she and Barack Obama want you to think that Donald Trump's the one who doesn't care. Daniel Efresny is a 20-year-old Syracuse student from Brooklyn, says Trump has all his pals at schools talking. He said, I hear from my friends who aren't necessarily into politics that these clips of Trump on podcasts naturally pop up on their feeds. I think the Trump campaign has been really successful in reaching out to young men, whether they're politically in tune or not. This young man cast an early vote ballot for Trump, he said. He says his primary motivators are inflation and the precarious state of international politics under Joe Biden's watch. The latest Times Siena poll found that Trump leads Harris among young men 58 to 37%. This is significantly closing the gap that he had in 2020 with Joe Biden. Since taking over the Democrat ticket, Harris has gained with young women, but she's doing no better with young men than Joe Biden did 4 years ago. Team Trump has done a lot to get in front of young males' eyes. He's going places that he knows that they are. For example, he's made appearances at UFC matches to cheering audiences, while the Republican National Convention was a testosterone fest, according to some, featuring a speech by UFC President Dana White. First time we've ever seen anything like that. We saw wrestler Hulk Hogan. I was sitting in the Fiserv Arena that night when Hulk Hogan came out, and the crowd went wild. He tore apart his shirt right there at the podium to reveal a red Trump Vance tank top underneath. Since appearing on the Joe Rogan Experience on Friday, the episode has accumulated over 34 million views and counting on YouTube alone. He was also a guest on This Past Weekend with stand-up comic Theo Vaughn, and Impulsive with influencer and pro wrestler Paul, who he gifted a T-shirt bearing his mugshot, prompting the podcaster to call him a gangsta. The Post writes, seeing Trump bro out with influencers is appealing to young male voters, according to New York Young Republican Club President Gavin Wax. Wax said part of the appeal of Trump is his unabashed machoism, sort of vibe that he gives off. Wax is 30 years old. He said he's lived a full life, and I think a lot of young men look up to him. Trump's campaign platform, dedicated to the forgotten men and women of America, leans into issues that matter to male voters most, according to the Post, like defeating inflation, building the greatest economy in history, bringing back the American dream and making it affordable again for families, young people, and everyone. According to the poll by the Wall Street Journal, young men overwhelmingly say the economy is their top issue, and voters under 30 trust that Donald Trump can do something about it, and Kamala Harris cannot or will not. This young man says Trump's priorities speak to him. He said there's general messaging that conservatives provide to young men that you could be the hero of your own story, and they're providing an economic platform that will allow you to succeed. Michael Ovid, for example, 20-year-old, says Trump also appeals to young voters like him because he's expanding what it means to be a Republican. And he gave the example of Trump's inclusion of RFK Jr. in his campaign. He said this signifies his intention to diversify the ideas and people in the party, and that's appealing to young men like me, he said. Ovid is a senior at Harvard, by the way. He's the president of his college's Republican Club. Over the past year, he said he's seen their mailing list on Harvard, on the Harvard campus, grow from 112 members to 885. He said suddenly conservatism is popular on this liberal campus. This young man told the Post he plans to vote for Donald Trump on November the 5th, again citing the economy, again talking about foreign relations, and revitalizing the American dream are his top issues. He also says he likes how Trump is no nonsense. He went on to say the youth are kind of fed up with politicians not telling it to them straight. Whether or not people support Trump's policies, he says he likes it like it is. Experts say Kamala Harris's campaign optics and advertising are also pushing young men towards Trump. How's that happening? One widely ridiculed campaign ad targeted real men who are not afraid of women and are man enough to vote for Kamala Harris. That's not the right message that you want these young men to hear. When you start talking about real men as if most young men are not real men, an actor sitting on the tailgate of a pickup truck says, if a woman wants to be president, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement. The stunt was widely mocked online as the cringiest ad ever. Aside from that, other ads directed toward men, such as Harris's messaging features and seems directed towards women because she is gaining among young women. I think she's probably thrown up her hands and given up on the young men. Bottom line, young males under 30 could change the direction of this campaign next Tuesday. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself, if you're looking for a new appliance, to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. Two Washington Post editorial board members are calling it quits. They stepped down yesterday over the paper's decision not to endorse Vice President Kamala Harris. They're just going nuts. The Post announced on Friday, and we talked about it, that they would not endorse a presidential candidate this year or in future years, citing a return to the, quote, democracy dies in darkness paper's roots. The decision has caused significant turmoil within the organization as their liberal staffers are outraged and consider the non-endorsement a cowardly abdication of responsibility. Now, remember, billionaire Jeff Bezos is the owner of this paper. He reportedly stepped in and quashed the endorsement of Kamala Harris. The paper has not endorsed a Republican in 50 years. They've just always automatically endorsed the Democrat. And evidently, the editorial board thought they would get by with it again this year. As a result, Washington Post editorial board member David Hoffman has stepped down from the editorial board, but plans to remain with the paper. This, according to a letter he sent editorial page editor David Shipley that was obtained by NPR. Molly Roberts, also another editorial board member, also resigned, but again will stay with the Post. Now, let's pause here for a minute. Both of these are stepping down, yet they're not going to leave. They're stepping down in disgust from the editorial board, but they're okay with continuing to cash their check from this evil empire. You find that odd that they make all this noise about how indignant they are that their paper's not going to endorse a liberal Democrat for the first time in 50 years. But yet they'll hang around. They'll, keep sending me the check. I'm not that mad. I'm not that disgusted. I'll cash your check. It's laughable. These people are clowns. Mr. Hoffman wrote a letter to Post Union Chief David Shipley that he thought the board would continue to voice its values by not openly opposing former President Trump. He wrote, until Friday, I assumed we would apply the same values and principles to an editorial endorsement of Vice President Kamala Harris. I believe we face a very real threat of autocracy in the candidacy of Donald Trump. I find it untenable and unconscionable that we have lost our voice at this perilous moment. I stand against silence in the face of dictatorship. Here, there, everywhere, I'm stepping down from the editorial board. But I'm going to keep my job. Don't forget to deposit that check next week. Post columnist Michelle Norris and Post editor-at-large Robert Kagan resigned in protest as well. So here's what's happening. Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos yesterday also defended his decision not to back a presidential candidate, insisting that political endorsements create a perception of bias. And he's right. The Washington Post is known for its liberal leaning. It's not considered someone that's fair and balanced. It's not even considered journalist anymore. And evidently, Mr. Bezos wants his investment. He wants some return on his investment, and he's ready to turn that around. I don't know. I've always a little suspect of Mr. Bezos. He broke his silence on the matter in an op-ed that he wrote himself, published last night, arguing that his newspaper ending its long-running practice of endorsing a candidate for the White House is a principled decision, and it's the right one, he wrote. Presidential endorsements do nothing to tip the scales of an election, he said. No undecided voters in Pennsylvania are going to say, I'm going with newspaper A's endorsement. None, he wrote. What presidential endorsements actually do is create a perception of bias, a perception of non-independence. We told you about this on Friday. Washington Post CEO, publisher Will Lewis, announced that the newspaper was foregoing its pick for president, leading to outrage inside and outside of the newsroom. The newspaper's editorial board reportedly had already drafted their endorsement, ready for Vice President Kamala Harris, over Donald Trump, of course, before the kibosh was put on the endorsement. They had already written it. More than 200,000 Washington Post readers so far have ended their digital subscriptions following the controversial decision. Again, NPR reporting this yesterday. In addition to the a few opinion pieces, editors and writers stepping down. Bezos in the op-ed also stressed that the American public doesn't trust the press anymore, and through a news organization, he said, must work harder to control what we can control to increase our credibility. He said we must be accurate and we must be believed to be accurate. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but we are failing on the second requirement. Most people believe the media is biased. Anyone who doesn't see this is paying scant attention to reality, and those who fight reality lose, he wrote. At least he's making sense. So far, I haven't read a thing that he wrote in his editorial that I don't agree with. He's the second richest man in the world. Added his paper and the New York Times win numerous awards. He said, but we increasingly talk only to a certain elite. He said many people are turning to the off-the-cuff podcast, inaccurate social media posts, and other unverified news sources, which can quickly spread misinformation and deepen divisions. He also addressed an allegation from one of the staffers that stepped down, editor-at-large Robert Kagan, that Bezos reached a deal with Trump because the GOP nominee met with executives at Blue Origin. Blue Origin is his space company, by the way. After the Washington Post announcement, they were spreading the misinformation that Trump, I guess, had bought Bezos off somehow. Bezos said, I want to be clear. There's no quid pro quo of any kind at work here. Neither campaign nor candidate was consulted or informed at any level or in any way about this decision. He claimed that he was unaware of the meeting between Blue Origin and Trump that happened the same day as the non-endorsement announcement. And when he later found out about it, he said, I just sighed. He said, I knew it would provide ammunition to those who would like to frame this as anything other than a principled decision. This is the first time in 36 years it won't issue an endorsement. And I say good for them. Because like all these other non-Harris endorsements, it's just an endorsement of Donald Trump. Don't you agree? Don't you agree that by not endorsing the presidential candidate when they've been endorsing the Democrat for 50 years now, the fact that they're not offering their support to Kamala Harris, don't you agree that's really a win for Donald Trump? That's the same as endorsing him. And think about this. I mean, this is just how cozy this newspaper has been with the Democrats for all these years. Kamala Harris's campaign just expected it. They never thought that they would not get the Washington Post endorsement. Never crossed their mind. As it never crossed, evidently, the editors and some of the writers at the Washington Post that they had a new owner. There's a new sheriff in town. And he doesn't like the way you have been doing things in the past to create distrust among readers. Look, I agree with Bezos. I'm not sure that newspapers really should be endorsing candidates anyway, because a good news organization, journalist, never let you know who they support. They write about both. They're fair, and they deal with only the facts. Now, some people will email me or text me and talk about my opinion. I'm not a journalist. I never pretend to be a journalist. I'm a talk show host, an opinionated talk show host, a conservative talk show host. So, no, I am never going to be fair and balanced. I don't like Kamala Harris. I think she's a danger to our country, and I don't mind telling you. I think Donald Trump is the answer. I think Donald Trump can turn this mess around that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has created in almost 4 years. And again, I say that unapologetically. But I'm not a journalist. I don't pretend to be. Now, I'll always deal in the truth. I'll tell you the truth. But I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking. And my opinion is always arrived at with my experience. My life experiences have brought me here. My upbringing. My history. And that's how I make my decisions. And it's totally different from some of the yahoos that are out there supporting Kamala Harris. But you know what you're getting. I mean, when you tune in and you listen to me, whether you listen to me on the radio or you listen to my podcast, you know what you're getting. You know it up front. I think it's funny that these editorial board members are quitting. They're walking off their jobs, but they're not really. They're making a big splash, but they're still working there. They're still going to get paid. Bezos should fire them. You agree? Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. As we get closer to Election Day, we're going to hear more and more about election integrity. A couple of examples. Mail-in ballots are probably going to be a little tricky this year. The Nevada Supreme Court ruled yesterday that mail-in ballots with smudged, indecipherable, or missing postmarks can be counted for up to 3 days after the polls close on November the 5th. The Nevada Supreme Court rejected a bid by state and national Republicans and Donald Trump's presidential campaign and a voter, Scott Johnson, to block them from being counted. Among the GOP arguments was that mail ballots unfairly benefit Democrat voters. The court challenge came after Nevada Secretary of State Ciscar Aguilar, a Democrat, told county election officials in May that ballots without a visible postmark should be counted until 5 p.m. Friday after Election Day, which is November the 8th. Aguilar said that the ruling will allow election administration in Nevada to continue uninterrupted without the risk of disenfranchising voters through no fault of their own. In a statement, he praised election workers who have dedicated additional resources to securely process mail more efficiently this cycle. A Republican National Committeeman said in a statement the court decision undermined the integrity of Nevada's elections. The ruling upheld a decision in August by state court. It was not clear if plaintiffs will try to appeal the 7 justices' decision. 5 justices acknowledged that state law covering vote counting was not clear about ballots that have a postmark or processing date that cannot be determined. But the decision said that state lawmakers apparently intended to expand the freedom of Nevadans to vote. 2 justices concurred but provided separate written opinions. Nevada became one of the several states with universal mail voting in 2020, meaning that all registered voters are mailed a ballot unless they opt out, which I think is just crazy, that you'd send all these ballots out there not knowing if people wanted them, not knowing whose hands they're going to turn up in. On the text line, Tony writes, Joey, voted today, very smooth transaction. Didn't vote straight Republican because William Timmons was on it. He's the only one who didn't get my vote from the Republican Party. Faye writes, Joey, I was in the grocery store today, and as I rolled through, I made conversation with strangers so I could tell them about Trump. Was amazing what some think. Told them it should be chilling that Joe and Cackles had just given Pentagon a directive that they could use lethal force against Americans on American soil. Notice it is Americans, not illegals. Folks, there's no redo on this election. Faye says, what I've told you should scare you to death. Vote today. Do not wait. Jennifer writes, hey, Joey, what do you know about these 225,000 people not properly registered to vote in North Carolina? The GOP is trying to get them removed. I've been wondering lately, when will the voter fraud start showing up? There are also claims of discrepancies in Pennsylvania, Virginia, Illinois, Mississippi, and Nevada. Well, we're going to start seeing some things questioned. No doubt. One thing that has been circulating on social media is people concerned about how ballots are being fed into the machines here in South Carolina. One friend asked the question because she was concerned that her ballot had been put in upside down. Yesterday, I asked GOP Chairman Drew McKissick if there had been any issues and if it matters how your ballot is fed into the machine. Here's my conversation with Drew McKissick, Chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party. With us today, Drew McKissick, Chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party. I've seen a number of postings. In fact, some people have messaged me on social media about the voting machines. And one of the questions I've received a number of times is, well, I think they may have fed my ballot upside down. The machines read both ways, correct?
Correct. Either way, you put in right side, face side up, face side down. It reads it either way. It does have an instruction written on there, I think, just in terms of trying to keep things, in the same direction, because it probably makes it easier for them when they have to go in and take the physical ballots out. So where they have to do hand count, so they won't have to flip things around and so forth, or as little as possible. But it does read it either way, face up or face down.
Yep. Have you heard of any issues with any of the early voting polling places?
As far as the polling places are concerned, complaints or problems have been at a minimum around the state. Small things here and there. There's a change in the law versus before 2 years ago in terms of how far away people need to be for campaign activity around the precinct locations. It used to be the law was 200 feet. When the election integrity law was updated, it became 500 feet. Everybody's not aware of that. And people sometimes have to move signs further out or get further away if they're handing out pamphlets and things of that nature. So, sometimes a little confusion around that, but nothing major so far when it comes to, the actual process that we're using and how that's running. Biggest thing that we've seen has been what we reported in terms of Marion County and potential ballot harvesting over in that area. And SLED is now investigating that.
So there you have it in relationship to how ballots are fed into the machine. Doesn't matter how they are. So if you have been concerned about that, or if you know of someone who has, because I've seen quite a bit of it posted on social media. I've had friends who have messaged me and asked me the question because this kind of thing kind of gets started. I didn't think it was the case, but I just wanted to ask someone who knows for sure. And you heard him. Drew McKissick says, it does not matter how your ballot is fed into the scanner. It's going to read it either way, which is good to know. That if you have questions like this, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. I'm happy to get answers for you. You can text me as well, because we need to feel comfortable that our ballot is going to be counted as it should be. And we also need to feel comfortable that we have done everything we can in South Carolina and around the country to make sure that this election is on the up and up, that it's safe. I told you about the Nevada Supreme Court and their decision on the postmark. A northern Minnesota woman is accused of trying to submit a mail ballot for her recently deceased mother and has been charged with 3 felonies. Authorities say the case shows how routine election safeguards thwart the rare instances of attempted voter fraud. So here's what happened. Officials in Itasca County, Minnesota, it's about 200 miles north of Minneapolis, said yesterday that the improper vote was caught because the state provides a monthly list of people who have died to election officials. They flagged those names in the state's voter registration database. The woman returned ballots for herself and her mother in early October, according to the story. The AP is reporting this. And the county auditor's office, which oversees local elections, quickly verified that the mother had died at the end of August. In no way she could have cast this ballot. The woman told a sheriff's lieutenant in an interview that she filled out her mother's ballot after her mother's death, according to a probable cause statement. The statement said the woman was an ardent Trump supporter who had wanted to vote for him before she died. She didn't live long enough. The woman's first court appearance is set for December the 4th. She is charged with 1 count of illegal voting and 2 counts of making or signing a false certification, accused of forging her mother's signature, both on the mother's ballot envelope and as a witness on her own. Each charge carries a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison and a fine of $10,000. I'm sorry that this woman, who says she's a Trump supporter, has found herself in this situation. But we have to be opposed to cheating regardless of who does it, whether it's them or some of us. She shouldn't have done this, right? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. That's it for today's show. Tara is up next, followed by Mike Gallagher, Bill Frady, Charlie James. Mark Levin wraps things up tonight. I'm back again tomorrow at 5 a.m. for that first cup of coffee on Sunrise, Carolina. Until then, remember, folks, God's got this. He's still in control. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.